Hello, and welcome to Smash Fiction, the podcast where we pit two or more characters against each other in a battle of strength, or wits, or instilling martial arts know-how and see who would win. This week, Master Splinter versus General Iroh. Love thwarted has driven people to do strange things. Hold a boombox outside someone's house. Stop an airplane on a runway. Push a child out a window who saw you banging your sister. The dedication of love knows no bounds. Having defeated such villains as thugs, strongmen, a dominatrix, Skullmageddon, and the dreaded Jeff, the brothers expect to win the heart of Marian, but are met with the bitter sting of indifference, as she chooses neither of them for a boyfriend. Marian is off to Stanford to study nutritional anthropology. The Lee brothers are flummoxed. Surely those headbands were tubular. Had their moves not been rad enough? Were their bods not sufficiently righteous? Adrift on the tides of scorned love, Billy and Jimmy returned to what they understood best: fighting. Fighting each other would settle this. Fighting settles everything. This isn't just any fight, though. It's the fight for the love of their teenage lives, and that demands true commitment. They part ways to train with teachers that can help them truly hone their skills, help support their emotional growth, teachers that can mold and guide them into the boy that can win Marian's heart. Billy hears of a skillful teacher of ninjutsu who resides in the sewers of New York City named Master Splinter. He's a large, aged rat, which would be worrying if he wasn't also the one that trained the legendary Josh Sperling, a student so impressive that he kicked a beach ball to Mars. Oh man, thinks Billy. I bet that totally showed Mars who's boss. He manages to track down Josh, who reluctantly brings him into the sewers to meet with Master Splinter. Master Splinter takes one look at Billy and accepts him as a student. He may never be as good as Josh Sperling, but then, who is? Billy will be a true test of his teaching abilities. Master Splinter turns to Billy. I will train you. There is nothing more restful than a ninja than regular training, and sets to work. Jimmy catches word of an old man running a tea shop in Ba Sing Se. Getting to Ba Sing Se is going to take all of his mom's air miles, but General Iroh is the man that trained Sarah Roth. She's the student that harnessed the power of Sozin's comet to carve the fire symbol into Mars. Ha! Stupid Mars totally deserved it, thought Jimmy. So, with the best transportation Sun Country Airlines has to offer and a several days long layover in Budapest, Jimmy arrives in Ba Sing Se and is welcomed into the Jasmine Dragon. Iroh looks over his prospective student. Well, he's not Sarah Roth, that's for sure. But then, who is? Molding Jimmy will take all of his skills as a teacher. He nods to Jimmy. I will train you. A little help from others can be a great blessing. So, the stage is set. Who can train their student in martial arts and get a Lee brother to beat the shit out of another Lee brother? Who will be at the top of their game as fighters and as teachers to support and learnify their little knuckleheads to victory? I'm sorry, I was too busy drawing dicks in my notebook to study for this test. So I, Megan Bob, will be your impartial judge. Representing Team Iroh are Colin Mulcairn.
After studying with Uncle Iroh, I have now mastered the art of truth bending. Any bullshit that you fling at me, I shall absorb into my own body and redirect back at you.
And from the math of you, Lucas Brown.
After I conquer your ass, I'm gonna reconquer my tea shop, and I'm gonna play Pie Show every day.
Representing Team Splinter are Kit Mulcairn.
So, if Splinter walked into Iroh's tea shop, would it, instantly fail its health grade inspection?
And Dan Mulcairn.
Cowabunga.
Oh my god! Right in the childhood.
Didn't know if you were going to go with that or go ninja, go.
Sure, maybe I made another funny.
Also that,
Yep.
Yes.
In order to determine who went first this week, I asked the advocates to take a terrible 80s film and reboot it for a quick cash-in. Team Splinter chose to remake GoBots, Battle of the Rock Lords, and added a kick-ass soundtrack of metal ballads. It got 6.3 on Metacritic. Team Iroh chose to remake Sky Pirates, an Australian time travel/airplane/World War II movie. Eric Bana's soulful eyes and some glorious period costumes made up for a lot of plot holes, and they squeaked a 6.5 on Metacritic. Ultimately, you both lost because neither of you chose to remake Solar Babies, the post-apocalyptic rollerblading masterpiece.
What?
But Metacritic's verdict is final, for some reason. So, Team Iroh will be going first, followed by Team Splinter. Team Iroh, Show him how hot that tea is.
In the first episode of Avatar The Last Airbender, we are introduced in a somewhat throwaway manner to Uncle Iroh, who seems at first to be a minor supporting villain, an advisor to the evil Prince Zuko. But over the course of the series, Uncle Iroh is revealed to be so much more than what he seems. Iroh's incredible martial arts skills, willpower, and knowledge of how to train a body to be at its best can be seen most clearly in Season 3, when he is being held captive in a Fire Nation prison. Whenever the guards are around, he feigns that he is suffering from dementia, but whenever they are not, he repeatedly performs calisthenic exercises, which for those of you who don't know means doing weight training while using your own body as the weight, or aerobics. Ugh. We get a glimpse of him shirtless at one point, and we see that he has gone from having the body of William Shatner to having the body of Chris Pine. That's right, he Star Trek rebooted his own old-ass body while being in captivity, surrounded by guards that would punish him if they ever caught him training.
You know, I would like those Star Trek movies a lot more if Chris Pine had Iroh's facial hair situation. I just want to throw that out there.
Sweet pointy sideburns.
Exactly.
Yes. So just imagine the sorts of results that a person like that could get if he was put in charge of training a younger body in better circumstances. Like, with access to clean drinking water. Oh, and then he single-handedly breaks out of his cell and fights his way out of the aforementioned prison. A guard who witnessed the breakout described it as such. I've never seen anything like it. He was like a one-man army.
But I know our esteemed opponents will highlight that Iroh is a firebender, and this match is about training someone in martial arts. Iroh's got you covered, though. We've seen across multiple episodes that firebenders, especially those of the Fire Nation royal family, perform just fine in situations where they cannot bend. In The Blue Spirit, Zuko is able to stealth his way through an entire base of soldiers and fight his way free when discovered, not firebending once. And in the desert, he chops an arrow out of the air mid-flight, barehanded. During the day of Black Sun Part 2, The Eclipse, Azula is able to hold off Team Avatar, or the Gang, for several minutes, and they can't lay a glove on her. It stands to reason that Iroh is at least as well trained as Zuko or Azula, considering his rise to the rank of general in the military, and the fact he spends a much smaller percentage of his free time brooding.
Rewatching Ninja Turtles, I realized that the Ninja Turtles are an effective superhero team most of the time, not because they're particularly well trained, but because they're mutants with superhuman strength and agility. Splinter's probably an okay teacher, but he's far from being at the peak of his chosen martial art. Even back when he was a member of the Foot Clan, Splinter wasn't even in charge of his own dojo. He says in the first episode that he was a Shidoshi, and in ninjutsu, in order to be a Shidoshi, you have to at least achieve the rank of Godon, which is only the 5th rank out of a possible 15 black belt ranks in ninjutsu. And we have no reason to believe that he ever managed to progress very far beyond that 5th rank. We think of Splinter as this old legendary martial arts master, but in truth, he's none of those things. He's not even old. He looks like he's like 35. He has black hair when he gets turned into a human. And speaking of which, when Splinter gets turned into a human in the episode Splinter No More, he becomes so freaking useless. He gets surrounded by like 3 level 1 street toughs, the supervillain equivalent of Goombas, and he immediately accepts the fact that there's no way he can win this fight. He says, "The odds are overwhelming, but I shall equip myself nobly." The only reason he survives this encounter is because his mutation starts coming back and it freaks out his would-be attackers who run away. This is a battle of students though, right? So let's see how well Splinter's students are actually trained when they can't rely on their superhuman strength and agility. In the episode The Gang's All Here, Michelangelo gets temporarily mutated into a human, and he becomes, I would say, comically useless, but even that is putting it too mildly. He becomes tragically useless. Not only can he not even remotely stand his ground against Rocksteady in a one-on-one fight, he can't fight generic thugs, he can't ride his skateboard without falling over, he can't even climb a ladder without getting winded.
One of the best moments in the whole series of Avatar is the speech where Iroh breaks down the 4 elements to Zuko and explains to him all about their different strengths and how they connect to one another. Given that they are from a nation that proclaims itself superior to the rest of the world, this sort of talk of 4 elements as equals is downright heretical, and it's the first time we see that Iroh is more than just any other Fire Nation true believer. In truth, he's a Renaissance man to such a huge degree that if Splinter ever got another turtle, he might want to call him Iroh. Iroh has studied, of course, firebending, other forms of martial arts, but also pai sho, botany, tea making, he invented bubble tea, music, negotiation, spirituality, meditation, military tactics, and waterbending. Keep in mind that in the Avatar universe, the ability to bend an element is something that a person is born with. It cannot be learned. And yet Iroh studied waterbending despite the fact it's impossible for him to ever do it, because he believed that all disciplines have within them hidden knowledge that can be learned and applied to other disciplines. And he was right. Through studying waterbending, Iroh has invented a new bending technique that allows him to absorb and redirect lightning, your top-tier firebending attack. This technique saved Zuko's life when Firelord Ozai tried to blast him with lightning. This ability to study disparate disciplines and use the knowledge from one to solve problems in another gives Iroh a level of creativity and an ability to innovate in a way that the more narrow-minded Splinter cannot. Iroh's education comes not only from his background as a Fire Nation nobleman, but also due to his status as a high-ranking member of the Friendly Old Men Illuminati, also known as the Order of the White Lotus, a secret international network of peace-loving scholars who share knowledge and resources with one another, composed largely of old bending masters, philosophers, and martial artists. This group's 5 senior members, led by Iroh, were able to take back the entire city of Ba Sing Se during Sozin's Comet, pretty much all by themselves.
Do we even need to compare this level of education and worldliness to Splinter? We see in the first episode that he's reading a giant square coffee table book that just says art on the front. Explains why he decided to name his turtle boys after the 4 most basic bitch Renaissance painters you could come up with. Wow. Splinter had years to train his turtles and shape who they were as people, and even given that much time, he only did a kind of okay job. Iroh is capable of getting someone to change not only more quickly, but also at a much more fundamental level. The most obvious example can be seen in Prince Zuko, who, when he finally betrays Fire Lord Ozai, cites Iroh's influence as a reason, but there are other examples as well. After Toph decided to quit Team Avatar, convinced that she would be better off alone, she ran into Iroh while traveling on the road, not knowing who he was, and the two of them decided to have tea together. After just a couple minutes of talking to this warm and insightful old man, Toph changed her mind and decided to go back and rejoin her team.
An even more extreme example of just how quickly Iroh is capable of getting someone to completely rethink their life can be seen in the episode Tales of Ba Sing Se, when Iroh gets attacked by a would-be mugger. Iroh critiques his stance, easily disarms him, teaches him a better stance, then over a cup of tea convinces him to give up his life of mugging altogether and become a masseur. If Iroh ever ran into Bebop and Rocksteady, he'd probably convince them to abandon their villainous ways and, I don't know, kickstart an open-source sourdough bakery? Maybe start an indie bluegrass band?
In the episode The Sword of Yurikawa, Splinter suspects that the titular magical sword is going to be stolen from a museum, and so he tells the turtles that they need to go guard it. They complain about being hungry and ask their master if they can eat first. Splinter says no and comments, "It's obvious that you turtles don't have the true ninja spirit." And whose fault is that, Splinter? You got sole custody of these boys. They learned it from you. Probably goes without saying, but the turtles did in fact ignore their master's orders and stop for pizza on the way. And while they were getting that pizza, the sword did indeed get stolen. And this was in episode 131, by the way. So we can see, like, even super deep into the turtles' crime-fighting career, Splinter was never really able to instill in them any sort of real discipline or focus.
A last point. In both the Double Dragon Neo Geo arcade fighting game, and especially in the amazing Double Dragon cartoon, we see that the Lee brothers have the ability to do some chi magic. In the cartoon, there's telekinesis and energy blasts through their swords, and in the games, they have supercharged glowing punches and occasionally green fireballs. Even without a sword as a focus, Jimmy, canonically cited in the video game as having stronger attacks than Billy, can slice a steel girder in half without even touching it. As these powers are sporadic across media, I posit the Lee brothers have these abilities innately, but haven't really developed them too much yet, preferring to instead fight the old-fashioned way. I think if one of these instructors is able to teach their designated Lee how to master their chi powers, then that Lee will have a considerable edge over their competitor, and if any master is prepared to teach you how to control and direct your chi into a deadly weapon, it's Iroh. There is literally a T for that. Firebending, including shooting lightning, is all about controlling the flow of chi in your body and weaponizing it. Based on the way that Iroh was able to study waterbending and use its principles to affect firebending, and how Aang was taught to release chakras by a non-bender in the Guru, we can assume that regardless of how your chi expresses itself when it leaves your body, be it water, fire, or green fireballs, the basic technique and principles are universal.
If Splinter's plan is to expose Billy Lee to mutagen and give him superpowers, then he might have a shot at winning this match, if the animal that he most recently came into contact was a useful one for mutation.
Yeah, God forbid he stepped on a slug or something.
But if his plan is to train him, then I feel pretty good about our chances.
And let's not forget that Jimmy, in the cartoon, was kidnapped, raised, and trained in the dark arts of the Black Flame by the Shadow Master as his evil servant, Shadow Boss, before rebelling and joining his brother on the side of good, ostensibly to gain a spot on the Super Spike V-Ball tournament. So we're saying a hot-headed, shitty kid on a quest for vengeance who later reformed and joined the side of good. Give this guy a facial scar and a helmet with plumes, and we could just call him Zuko.
More so than just about any other match I've had to do on this podcast, this one really hurts me because I loved Ninja Turtles growing up so much, and Splinter, on some level, I think that part of my 3-year-old brain imprinted on Splinter in this weird way so that when I was trying to write this opening argument and say mean things about him, it just felt wrong. I felt like I was saying bad things about my dad. But part of growing up is realizing that your dad is not the strongest or smartest man in the world. Your parents are just people with flaws like anyone else. And rewatching this series, I realized that most of the praise that was getting dumped all over Splinter throughout this series was coming from his 4 adopted sons who still aren't out of that hero worship phase. And although it's hard to do, this is not a podcast about feelings. It's a podcast about facts. We're grown-ups now. We have to shine the harsh light of reality on Splinter and see him for who he really is. And although he is a good person, he's not a great teacher. He's a rat man who smells like poop and has been wearing the same dirty purple kimono for like a decade now. At least Iroh changes his outfit like once a season.
Okay, are you guys done now?
Yes, that is all. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I mean, thank you for reading War and Peace to me. Team Splinter, show them how you get things done in the sewers.
I am so very glad that of the Double Dragon Bros, Team Iroh chose to mentor Jimmy Lee. We see in the Double Dragon animated series that Billy is the sensible one, the one that never loses his temper and always exhibits wisdom. Jimmy, on the other hand, is an almost perfect Zuko replacement, just like you said. Stubborn, headstrong, short-sighted, brunette. Yeah, sure, he's the better looking of the two brothers, but Jimmy is basically Zuko without the firebending. And you can't just learn firebending if it wasn't in your genetics to begin with, so you're out of luck there, pretty boy. Luckily for Jimmy, Iroh also knows martial arts. Unluckily for Jimmy, Iroh isn't good at mentoring bullheaded boys. He just isn't. Iroh offers most of his advice through proverbs and lengthy anecdotes. Kids love that. Zuko loved it. Except when he didn't. Jimmy, as well, is just gonna want to learn new moves so he can finally show his brother what for, not waste time finding himself. He knows who himself is, the guy who's gonna kick his brother's ass, or so he mistakenly thinks. Iroh didn't teach Zuko any advanced firebending until after Zuko's sister Azula almost killed them. Iroh isn't the only martial arts master in the multiverse, and after the umpteenth time Iroh suggests playing Pai Sho or relaxing over a cup of tea or taking a break at a hot spring, Jimmy's gonna grab his bags and look for that Mr. Miyagi guy or any martial arts master that'll actually teach him some combat. It takes 2.5 seasons for Iroh to finally get through to Zuko, and he didn't really get through to him so much as Zuko did a bad. He did a bad to his uncle and finally realized that he was acting like a little shit. To elaborate, Zuko betrayed Iroh and got him thrown into prison. Uncle Iroh refused to speak to his shithead nephew, and so Zuko was forced to baste in his wretched guilt until he finally saw the light. Is Jimmy gonna have to completely wrong Iroh before he can get his shit together? Is Iroh even gonna stick around long enough to let that happen? Iroh's patience with Zuko comes from their familial connection. Yes, Iroh is shown helping many bystanders throughout the series, but not much beyond some wise words. It's because Zuko is his nephew that Iroh even cares about him enough to try to stop him from acting like a tiny drunk dragon. Iroh will not have the fucks necessary to get Jimmy Lee to follow his instructions and stick to training. Jimmy probably doesn't even like tea. Fucking Google image search him right now and tell me he doesn't double fist Four Locos at 9 a.m. at work.
This is an interesting fight for me to poop on. Seriously. If Splinter and Iroh were actually fighting, that would be one thing, but they're not. They've taken on the thankless task of training the Lee brothers, who are not bad enough dudes to rescue the president, and have to stick to micromanaging the hell out of their crime-filled neighborhood. When you realize that this isn't about your fighting skill, but your ability to impart that skill in others, we can go ahead and call this our shortest episode yet, because ain't no way Iroh can train a better fighter than Master Hamatoyoshi himself can. Both of these characters are known for training warriors, but that means a lot more for Splinter than it does for Iroh. Iroh has the supportive infrastructure of the Fire Nation helping him. His pupils are trained from an extremely young age to start harnessing their firebending and martial arts abilities. All he does is come in and continue training those who have already had quite a bit of preparation already. Now consider Splinter. Splinter's pupils were 4 mutant turtles who not only lacked a supportive infrastructure assisting them in their learning, they were creatures known for and defined by their clumsy slowness, and they had only just learned how to walk on 2 legs. Any attempt to train the turtles in any sort of physically intensive feat had a huge chance of failure, but Splinter turned them into a well-crafted team of martial arts masters, able to take on foes ranging from ninjas to robots to aliens from Dimension X. 10 whole seasons of increasingly weird and powerful foes from the 1987 series alone. Compare the number of times that Splinter's pupils, the Turtles, have beaten Shredder to the number of times that Iroh's pupil, Zuko, has beaten Aang. That's the difference in training quality we're looking at here. Splinter was the one who trained all of the turtles in their respective forms, meaning he's a master of the katana, bow staff, nunchaku, and sai, not to mention the shuriken, manriku gusari, and other ninja weaponry we see the turtles use on occasion, plus the longbow he himself uses on multiple occasions, and those are just the weapon styles, not even the unarmed forms. Splinter has the flexibility and breadth of knowledge to find or develop a style that will work toward Billy Lee's strengths, transforming him faster than a canister of mutagen. But if Jimmy Lee doesn't immediately take to the Fire Nation style, the only form that Iroh is shown to have mastered, all he's gonna get is burned. The thing about the Turtles is, yes, Splinter has turned them into incredibly skilled martial artists. In The Legend of Koji, they hold off a force of 400 samurai. Those are worse odds than the Spartans had in 300, and the Turtles didn't have the advantage of being able to bottleneck their enemies the way the Spartans did. Did you guys know that the Turtles met freaking Usagi Yojimbo? 'Cause they did. When the Master Samurai himself fights the Turtles, even he has to comment, such superb technique, such mastery of form, such delicious taste. Okay, that last part was in response to getting hit in the face by a pizza, but still, the turtles' combat prowess is actually secondary to their real talent, the real skill that Splinter teaches them: creativity. We see in Case of the Killer Pizzas that Splinter teaches the turtles to think around a stronger opponent, like when Michelangelo and Raphael fight Donatello's combat training robot, and Raphael wisely aims for the extension cord plugged into the wall instead of for the robot itself. When the turtles are transported to Dimension X in Turtle Trek, they are chased by a large spike-throwing T-Rex, but they realize that a nearby hill is actually a much larger sleeping monster. They wake that monster up and it chases the T-Rex away. Later in that same episode, they fight first a group of cyborg aliens, and then an army of Krang's rock warriors, and manage to defeat both groups by using their own weaponry against them. In the final episode of Ninja Turtles, the alien warlord Dreg absorbs the superpowers from multiple crazy aliens and amplifies them 100-fold, becoming a super strong, invulnerable, shape-shifting, unbeatable force of nature. Well, unbeatable until Splinter's boys go up against him. As always, it's Splinter's guidance, wisdom, and cleverness that sees the turtles through what would otherwise be an invulnerable enemy, and they defeat him multiple times in that one episode. The vast majority of the fights in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles don't come down to who's stronger or more skilled. It's about who's smarter. Whether they're in modern-day New York, back in feudal Japan, or on another planet or another dimension, Splinter's training ensures that they succeed against any foe. But we see with Zuko that if he doesn't have the skills needed to beat a foe in a straight fight, a foe he fights over and over again no less, he's hopeless. And no amount of sunset-palated brooding about his honor is enough to help him overcome that obstacle. The proof is in the pupil. Iroh doesn't value critical thinking in the same way that Splinter does, and anyone he trains will be just another one-note villain of the week to be defeated by Splinter's new Teenage Mulleted Ninja Teenager. Yes, I know it's a bit repetitive, but we have the copyright on the acronym, and damn it, we're going to use it.
Now we come to the time in which the class runs wild. Team Iroh, quick, the teacher's making copies, set fire to the desks.
Okay, I got a point I want to throw in real quick. You compared Avatar Aang as, like, Zuko's nemesis to the freaking Shredder. Like, they're at all on the same level.
Shredder does, I admit, get kind of nerfed as the series goes on. He's freaking deadly at the start of that series. And even beyond that, he's a ninja. He's this, like, super genius inventor. He recruits all sorts of people. He has new mutant minions every week that the turtles have to learn about and adapt to. And that's just the Shredder. There's Krang. There's all of his army from Dimension X. There's Lord Dreg. There's Leatherhead. There's the Rat King. There are so many guys that the turtles have to fight, and they're all really dangerous and really different.
You talked about how Jimmy Lee being the, like, angsty dark one is gonna be all bullheaded and tough to mentor. But actually, most of his, like, evilness is in the past, before he actually teams up with his brother. In the cartoon it is, and I believe it's implied to be in the games as well. He's pretty much reformed and sorted his shit out by the time he, like, joins the good guys. So we're dealing with more of, like, Season 3 Zuko than we are Season 1 Zuko.
I mean, he's not evil anymore, but you see throughout the whole Double Dragon series that he's always the stubborn one. He's always the headstrong one. He's always the one who, like, thinks he can go off on his own and beat the enemy by himself. There's even this one line in one of the later episodes where, like, Billy Lee momentarily does something reckless, and Jimmy Lee is like, what? Why are you doing that? Like, I thought I was the reckless one here. Like, that's a late episode, dude.
He's hot-headed, but damn it, he gets results.
Wait a minute. Oh, you're talking hot-headed, headstrong, leaves the team a lot. Are we describing Jimmy or Raphael?
No, Raphael is always loyal to Master Splinter. Raphael disagrees with the other members of the team. He even disagrees with Splinter some of the time, but he's never disrespectful to Splinter. You would never hear him say, "Shut up, uncle, I know what I'm doing."
And you were talking about, like, how the our little teenage boys, our little teenage turtle boys were, like, not disciplined because they couldn't resist pizza. No one can resist pizza! Especially not teenagers.
Yeah, introduce pizza into the Avatar world and then we'll talk.
There's a lot more evidence of Splinter not really having the best skills. He's like, you know, I really want to just hammer the drum one more time. Like, all of their powers just come from their superhuman abilities. Like, I think that their ability to fight off those samurai is like more of their like superhuman ability thing. Like, for instance, in the episode where he gets turned into a human, he's like hiding by these like train tracks for some cops that are trying to find him when he's in his like human body. After like they walk away, he like gets out of his hiding and he sort of like starts brooding, and then they turn around and they spot him and start chasing him again. And it's basically just like a sort of Warner Brothers cartoon of him getting chased around by these cops throughout the whole episode and like not being able to lose them. Not to mention he also got tailed when he was in Shredder's body by Bebop and Rocksteady. Like, he was going to go investigate like the body switching machine, and he thought he made it there alone, and then Bebop and Rocksteady walk in a few moments and they're like, yeah, we just followed you.
But that doesn't have anything to do with him trading his boys. That's just like him having a bad day. He got really used to being a rat.
Yeah,
you would too.
Isn't it interesting?
Rats are awesome.
Isn't it interesting that your main points come down to the time when Splinter had to change his body and suddenly he was less effective? How do you think Zuko would do if he got turned into a flying bison? How effective do you think Iroh would be if he got turned into a lemur?
Flying bisons are awesome, canonically. Appa the Flying Bison canonically curb stomped the entire Fire Nation army.
I was trying to find examples of Splinter fighting Shredder. He does it twice, once in one of the early episodes, episode 5, and then again in the season 2 finale. At both times they fight to a standstill and then they get interrupted. Like you said, Shredder's not that impressive, and Splinter can't even manage to like put away a victory against him. They just fight to a standstill every time.
Splinter's not the one fighting Jimmy. And, you know, you're trying to argue that our little turtle boys are getting all of their powers from whatever, Mutagen. Mutagen isn't going to teach them how to use the weapons. I mean, this isn't Extraordinary League. Like, you don't have fighting power. They didn't just, like, grow up into teenagers and have to suddenly... He helped them subdue their teenage hormones. 4 boys had to subdue their hormones. You know how fucking hard that is for
we don't
Splinter?
know that turtle teenagers have hormones.
Have you seen the way they look at April? They clearly have hormones.
Turtles have hormones. Actual
Normally I'd be
turtle
super
teenagers.
into this conversation, but today, no. Team Splinter, are those rebuttals? You better have enough for the whole class.
You were trashing Sidoshi. If you were Sidoshi, like, you were entitled to open your own dojo. Like, even though you saying he didn't have one, he was still at the level that he could have. So he is very, very much capable of being like a teacher of 4.
Yeah, he just valued learning more before he started teaching others.
Well, he should have kept learning and not become a stinky rat man who's like not been outside the sewers in like decades.
Rat racist. Get out of here. Rats are awesome.
You know what he should have learned? He should have learned that when someone pins your obi to the wall with a knife, you shouldn't pull out that knife in an attack posture and get your ass kicked out of the dojo.
And apparently not offer up any sort of explanation. Like, you'd think he could be like, no, it was freaking this really evil-looking guy to my left who's
not
framing
transferable skills for this match. Just want to point that out. You guys are talking about how, like, Splinter's not a very good fighter. First of all, that's not the point. But secondly, like, Splinter's an extremely creative fighter. There's the episode, The Legend of Koji, where Splinter is fighting a dragon? And it's not his martial arts that wins, it's his quick thinking, because he's able to figure out that there's this hot springs directly underneath it, and he actually uses it to make this like wall around the dragon and trap him, and then he convinces the dragon to work with him. That's how Splinter wins, that's how the Turtles win. I'm not saying they're bad fighters, because they are definitely not, but they mainly tend to win by using their environment, they use their opponent's weaknesses against each other, sometimes they even use their opponent's strengths against them.
You want to talk about fighting a dragon? Iroh got a dragon to surrender and give him its secrets without him having to kill it. He's the only person in the history of the Fire Nation who, rather than killing a dragon and taking its power, gets that power given to him willingly, just by talking to it. Speaking of improvisation, Iroh can always turn a situation to his advantage. He can firebend with his feet, he can firebend with his face, he can breathe fire. He's often seen using charm, deceit, ploys to come out on top. He breathed on his manacle and burned his jailer. He was able to leave a trail for Zuko when naked except for a bathrobe and some flip-flops. He takes down a rhino in the episode The Desert, which is basically a triceratops with a chain.
This is a fight against the boys, not the teachers. Colin, was it you that mentioned like the hero worship thing? That like our beautiful turtle boys are just hero worshiping?
Yes.
Have you ever fucking met a teenager? That is the last person to hero worship the parental figure. If anything, the fact that he got 4 teenage boys to like show any amount of respect to him is amazing. Here, the hero worship stage is like before elementary school.
I loved my daddy when I was a teenager.
You're an outlier.
I'm a good turtle boy.
Also, I've seen a lot of YouTube clips where there are some not very nice turtles who are... So definitely turtles have those hormonal impulses, and they make weird noises when they do.
And you don't ever see them trying to hump a shoe, so...
Why are we like this?
They just need love. They get desperate too.
You know, you were talking about the time that Iroh fought the dragon, and he did eventually convince the dragon to surrender, but that was after he physically attacked it. And most of the time when Iroh is being impressive in the show, it's because he's, like, strong and fighty. But we see that the turtles are very capable of taking on people who are definitively stronger and fightier than they are. Bebop and Rocksteady are regularly stronger than the turtles are, and they also usually have, like, laser machine guns, but the turtles always take them out, again, because they can outsmart them. They can use their creativity. It doesn't matter how strong you are, even how well trained you are in terms of like how well you can punch and kick. If your opponent can outthink you, it does not matter.
First off, you're saying the turtles are outsmarting Bebop and Rocksteady. So can Yeast. And also, the turtles are not fighting this fight. It's one of our boys.
Like you talked about, Iroh is stronger and fightier than people. Iroh's an old man. He's an old-ass man. If he can beat people, it's because he's more creative.
I don't know, man. He was pretty swole after jail. You said it yourself.
That's fair.
So what's Splinter, like 22? He's like one of those mall karate teachers, like your first lesson's free if you buy the game.
Wow.
It took him 4 years to train Zuko, so he's not good at getting through stubborn boys.
And so, as the blood hits the mat, or floor, or pavement, or whatever surface one martial arts upon, we come to the lightning round.
I have to channel the lightning round through my heart.
Oh no, don't do that, it's dangerous! Okay. If you're wondering what happened to Marian, she did not even come to the fight. She did not give a shit. She was on her year abroad, and she met a girl, and they're settling down in Germany. So there you go.
That's nice.
Suck it, Jimmy and Billy. Anyway, you know, it's hard to be a teacher. It's really hard to look at those blank lol faces every day and try to get them to look just a little less blank.
Seriously.
Sometimes you just have to let loose. Be yourself. By day, mild-mannered instructor of martial arts. By night, karaoke superstar.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, yes.
Tell me, what stage name you use and how you dress to maintain your karaoke mystique. That's not a thing, but I invented it and it is now. The classic song you're known for, your signature song, if you will. The song you only ever did that one time and people still talk about it. These are two different songs because I knew you guys couldn't pick just one. Who could? And then describe your go-to dance move during the long music breaks and drum solos. You never think there's one in that song, but there always is. And as is traditional, the team that went second in the big thing goes first in the smaller thing.
Uh-huh.
And the smaller thing is now, so the team that went there, it's Team Splinter.
Okay.
You did it.
So let me bring now to the stage Splinter, aka Hamato Yoshi, aka the Radical Rodent. He actually has a costume that he uses when he goes to karaoke. His costuming palette was a little limited, so he actually had to go with one of the costumes that the turtles use when they go in disguise into the city. So in this case, he took that one disguise that they wear, where it's like a knit cap and mirrored shades and a leather jacket and no pants. So that's what Splinter's rocking.
Oh my god! I like this bar he frequents.
Yeah.
So bamf.
So he actually has a couple of tunes that he alternates between, just kind of depending on his mood. One is, of course, Kung Fu Fighting. The other one is One Way or Another, because
I know what.
there's a line in One Way or Another, and I don't know what it is. In Guitar Hero, when you play that song, the lyric that it gives you is specials on wrapped food, but if you play the same song in Rock Band, the line is specials on rat food. So I don't know what it is. I don't know what the karaoke machine is going to show, but obviously Splinter is choosing the Rock Band version of those particular lyrics. However, there was one night that is still spoken of in hushed whispers amongst those who claim that they were there. Splinter was exposed to a lot of 80s music as a result of his children. One day decided to take on that epic song, Take On Me, including it's just climactic, ecstatic build in the middle of the chorus, where you basically have like a 3-octave climb up to the top of this ladder.
Objection. You cannot do a Morton Harkett note as a rat.
Yes.
Well, you know what? That's what everyone else said too, but he proved them wrong.
Rats have like extremely high-pitched voices to the point where you have to have like a special like microphone to bring it down so you can hear them do their little squeakies.
Yeah, I think
That's fair. I'll concede that point.
Yeah, Splinter outdid Aha in that moment. And of course, it was all punctuated by his trademark dance move, which is of course called the tailspin, which is breakdancing, but he uses his tail as a pivot and just sort of spins around like a helicopter.
Breakdancing cannot go without popping and locking.
Sure.
And my good sir, you come to the right place for animal knowledge. So rats, interestingly enough, can fit into any space that their skull can fit into because they have collapsible rib cages and all sorts of little poppy-locky things. So he is going to do some insane shit that you ain't never seen human pop and lockers do before.
He's going to be squeezing into all sorts of tiny spaces.
Oh my god.
Nightmare popping.
Yeah, if a giant rat wasn't horrifying enough.
Yeah, he looked pretty good in that outfit. That was beautiful. Brought a tear to every eye in the room. Iroh, Team Iroh. Tell me about this legend of the karaoke. What do you call it? Bar?
This legend, the legend of karaoke, also known as the dragon of your heart.
Oh wow, very forward, but I like it.
Is this chapter 8, the Book of Soul?
Can turn fire into funk.
Oh, hell yeah.
Whoa!
He walks into the room in a white silk kimono and platform shoes, reminiscent of the 68 comeback special. Dragons and cranes fight along his legs and spread out across his back. A short cape billows behind him.
Holy shit!
He charms every woman in the room, and many of the men. On the way up, he touches one woman on the cheek. She faints. As for the song for which he's known, his iconic tune is Me and Mrs. Jones, and he makes eye contact with everyone in the room during the song.
Simultaneously.
Also in his regular rotation, of course, Ring of Fire. And We Didn't Start the Fire, Disco Inferno, Light My Fire, Burning Down the House, Jump Into the Fire, Sex on Fire by Kings of Leon, Standing Outside the Fire by Garth Brooks, Set Fire to the Rain by Adele.
No Burning Love?
No Fire by Jimi Hendrix?
That's more of a guitar piece than a karaoke piece, but the song that he only did once that ended up really did bring the house down that everybody loved was, of course, the time he did the Humpty Dance.
Aww.
And, of course, at the end of the night, when it starts to slow down, when they're kind of mellowing out, time for one more song, he'll bust out "Leaves on the Vine," which is that song that he sings in his solo episode.
Oh,
and
no.
Not a goddamn dry eye in the house.
Yeah. Everybody just leaves for the night because they feel
or
so
down the
shitty.
street or in the world.
And then he'll look at the microphone and he'll mutter, "Goodbye." And he won't drop the mic. He'll gently put it down and walk out of the spotlight.
And then I physically die.
He'll set the mic down on a little shrine and with some incense burning by it, and everyone can just look at the mic sitting there.
Jeez.
And everyone will remember how good Mako was.
Yep.
His dance move is, of course, the flaming hips. He's also, of course, fond of taking any sort of alcoholic drink in his mouth, and then he can spit fire without needing to light it, of course. And
Now I'm hungry for a duet number between the two of you, but I will leave that to whatever we call the conversation, I guess during Judge's Recess, which is happening now. Goodbye forever, I shall never return.
No, bye. Oh, Lucas, you're a natural.
Oh, thank you.
Very good lighting.
Your deep delve into a Double Dragon was most impressive.
yeah, I only had so much patience for that stupid cartoon.
That's
Oh, it's
understandable.
garbage. It's hot garbage. Oh my god.
Yeah. Lucas and I were talking about it before the show, and we came to the realization that I think it's like the most Saturday morning cartoon out of any Saturday morning cartoon that I've seen, to the point where there's nothing left in it but Saturday morning cartoon trope, and like it doesn't have any actual original content in it.
Yeah, you take like a minimalist cast and then you just expand it out by several other purposefully toyetic characters.
Yes.
And then it's just like Monster of the Week, perfectly recyclable plot that returns to the status quo at the end of it. Yeah, that's pretty Saturday morning.
Do you remember that quote, Lucas, about the kids needing the help?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'd love to help you fight crime, but these street kids need me.
Oh, jeez. Was that the episode that Mr. T guested on? Because that's what it sounded like.
That was my thought, too. I see. I wish that I could have stretched it a little further and, brought in... Because I mentioned Mark Dacascos for a reason, because that guy's the closest thing we have to a superhero.
Was he the guy from Brotherhood of the Wolf? Or?
Brotherhood of the Wolf. So he can fight werewolves and mystically track people. He's trained in capoeira for only the strong. He gained the power of the Iron Chef by eating the previous Iron Chef. And he came back from the dead, mystically empowered as the fucking Crow.
The secret ingredient is you.
Yeah, they don't say. They make those red peppers out of Chairman Koji from the Japanese Iron Chef.
Well, I have to say, Avatar has a lot of characters that I really, really love. Everyone in the gang is fantastic.
Yep.
Yes.
The cabbages guy always makes me laugh. Firelord Ozai is such a good villain. Azula is freaking nuts. But
Azula's great. Such a good character study.
Head and shoulders above everyone else in that show is Iroh.
Yep.
Hands down the best character in that show. And it broke my heart to have to talk so much shit about him tonight.
When you were talking about how it was really hard for you to go against Splinter, Dan and I were just nodding.
Yep.
It's
just
yep.
yep.
Iroh's the same way. We didn't this was a tough match for all sides.
Yeah, Iroh's such a good character that he became one with the frickin' Force for the sequel series.
They just had to bring him back. They're like, how can we bring Iroh back in Legend of Korra? And they're like, I guess he became one with the Force, question mark?
And I gotta say, during that rough-ass second season of Korra, that's that bright, shining moment he turns up, and I just screamed at my TV.
We have to do our quiz here. So, if you were exposed to mutagen, what would you transform into?
Now, is this just wish fulfillment, or what do I look inside and see as my true spirit animal?
So, first of all, mutagen is whatever animal you were most recently exposed to.
Oh,
we'll do that.
Oh, okay.
But then we'll also do your inner...
That's also why Shredder became Super Shredder, because the last thing he was exposed to was himself.
Exactly.
Oh, God.
The last thing he was exposed to was his own cutlery, so he just got more of that.
Oh, jeez.
So, a mutated human, a.k.a. more human than human.
Yeah, no one ever knows. No one ever talks about this, but he actually just carries a hedgehog around in his pocket at all times. So that was just what happened.
Just in case he gets exposed to mutagen, he wants to make sure he transforms into a thematically appropriate.
Oh my god! No, I just thought of it. He just constantly, several times a day, will go hang out with Strife.
Exactly.
Blades on blades.
Yeah, what animal were you most recently exposed to that you would mutagen into? But then, what's your inner animal that you know you would turn into?
I suppose Luke is probably a kangaroo, right? If I know anything about Australia.
There is literally a cat sitting under my chair, so I can't even pretend.
Yeah.
Although there is a sausage dog in the other room, so that could just be incredibly awkward.
So you turn into cat dog, basically?
A really short cat dog.
Yeah.
I was just babysitting my friend's really old terrier who's blind and deaf, and every day that dog wakes up, it's a miracle. And so he's a sweet little dog, but he's just not all there. And so I don't know, will I just turn into dog, or will I turn into that dog?
Yeah, I think you're turning into a shitty little dog.
Oh, no.
Yeah, a blind, deaf dog.
You don't get the ailments of the animal.
Well, good. What about you guys?
Well, I had a lizard sitting on me right before we started recording,
we're both gonna be an Asian water dragon, so. Yeah.
But what is your inner spirit animal that you know you would turn into?
I have never drawn a fursona for myself because I cannot fucking decide. I want all the animals.
You just go to a zoo, tape all the animals to yourself, and then chug that mutagen.
You turn into the beast at the end of that Splicers episode of Batman Beyond.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
Lucas, Colin, what are your inner animals that you just know in your heart you would become?
Probably something kind of I don't know, little and dumpy and cowardly, like an armadillo or something. They're just kind of
Hey, armadillos are awesome.
Yeah. Actually, if we assume, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle equivalent of an armadillo as a badass, ninja fighter dude would probably be a pretty cool superhero.
Yeah. It's not that far off from a turtle, like, conceptually.
Yeah, Colin, I have a suggestion for you. You ever see a pangolin?
Oh
No, what's a
my god,
pangolin?
they're so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great.
They are, and they constantly look like they're nervously about to ask you out to a dance.
Oh,
So
the little claws, you're right. Yeah, type.
Oh yeah, those guys. They're so great. Yeah, I want to be one of them.
Oh,
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
Move over, armadillos.
Oh, they're so
there's
cool.
Pangolins.
Yeah.
As for my Patronus inner animal, I did a quiz after the Golden Compass movie came out that was looking what my daemon would be.
Sure.
Ah, yes.
And it picked a raccoon, and I have never been so happy with that result in my life. Because they're intelligent, and they steal things, and they can, like, taste things with their hands.
I know that a lot of our listeners also listen to the podcast System Mastery, but they recently came out with a review of some 200-word RPGs, one of which is called Trash Pandas, which is a heist game in which you play a bunch of raccoons trying to get into a trash can. And
Holy shit.
it sounds like the best game. I want to play that game so bad. Yeah.
I want to play.
Yeah, we should. We should play Trash Pandas. So, Bob, you missed out on the little quiz here. If you were exposed to mutagen, what animal would you turn into?
I mean, I'm sure my son has licked me recently.
Yeah.
By son, I mean dog.
Sure.
I'm probably turning into that.
Okay.
I think that's unavoidable, unless a bug has touched me and I have not known.
That's true.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
we're probably all
no.
going to be bugs.
Oh, no.
Actually, come to think of
well-
it, you want a nightmare scenario? How many dust mites are on you right now?
Oh, yeah. We could turn into, like, eyelash mites.
Yeah, I turn into my own gut bacteria. Just my luck.
Well,
And
now,
then just
Dan,
die.
You pulled them all
That's
Man,
true.
that-
Gut bacteria
That
aren't
seventh
animals.
wave of
Thank
Ninja Turtles
you.
figures got real weird.
That's right. Yes.
And then I guess in my heart of hearts, there's sort of two possibilities. Either me as like a scraggly ass raven that's just like,
Aw, that's so
why? Everything's so, that just like hangs around and squawks and then steals like French fries.
Oh, Bob.
I need to
But
point
look-
out that Australian ravens are A, thuggish, B, sort of cough instead of ka, and so what it ends up sounding like is fuck.
That's probably me. But then I guess the other possibility would be like me as a small, like imagine a dragon that was sort of like the size of a small dog that wanted to sleep all the time, but also wanted to be like simultaneously paid attention to and also left alone and also given things.
Okay.
Aw, Bob.
So you're a Terry Pratchett swamp dragon.
Yeah, that's probably it. Terry Pratchett knew me.
Did you say, Dan? Did I miss this? Or what did we...
I don't know what I'd be. I think I'd be a bat.
a bat?
Yep.
Aw,
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
I like-
dude, be a flying fox.
I like staying out at night. I like flying around. I'll eat bugs and everyone will love me. And then I get to sleep upside down and look really creepy and
They
it's
got
awesome.
giant junk.
That's right.
Yeah.
They do. Also, one of the few species that does oral sex.
So what you're saying is, I'd be a bat, ladies.
So, no, before I say anything, it's not because I don't love and respect you and you didn't do a good job. You did a great job. You're both amazing. That said, Iroh sounds like by far the better fighter and the stronger opponent. Splinter sounds like the better teacher. The one who can deal with shenanigans on a pretty constant basis from a difficult person. I feel like one of the things that was a problem for Iroh was that he spent all of his time on Zuko, and I mean, like, man, you gotta know when to fold him. And just, as a teacher, you have to know when to go. The light is not dawning. It will never dawn. I just walk away now. He sounds amazing, and I love him, and I loved watching him. I loved watching both of them. Yes, Splinter is, like, the goofier one. Obviously, he's a giant fucking rat. He's super dumb and goofy. Well, in terms of appearance. But he wrangles 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and gets them to do shit.
Yes.
That's pretty good.
Ugh.
God damn it. You guys were so good. All of you were so good.
Ugh.
And I loved, and I didn't want to make this decision. And the end of it is that I love you all and I couldn't hate you more.
You guys,
So
you killed it. You absolutely
You guys
killed
suck.
it.
Yes.
It
So
was so
hard.
good.
GG.
You guys had the much better lightning round. Your lightning
Oh,
round was
yeah.
freaking
Oh,
hysterical.
I want that to be the next thing that gets drawn. That's
Yeah.
Lucas, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh my
Colin
gosh.
was recently a guest on your show, The Math of You, which is an excellent podcast. It's good to have you on this side of the fence. You were very welcome.
Thank you. And even though we lost the day, I feel we gained the moral victory.
How's that?
Sure.
I agree with that.
I don't know. It all works out somehow.
That's that's law now.
I want to say, check out the Math of You. It's friggin' amazing. The premise of it is, whenever the guest is on, they pick a few pieces of formative media from when they were young that shaped who they were as people and helped shape their sensibilities, and they talk about that and why that's important to them. And what you'll find when you listen to the show is pretty much anyone can pick a thing that's really important to them, and in the right environment, talk about it in a way that's very interesting. People can, make you care about the things that you care about. And Lucas is really good at, bringing that out in people during interviews.
Yes, you have to have a good host, and Lucas is a great host.
Yeah, Lucas really knows how to interview.
Yo.
If you guys want to check out my episode, it's actually a chance. We don't really have a chance on our podcast a lot to get super deep into who we are as people. Our show has such a strict format a lot of the time. So I have a chance to get into a lot of personal stuff in that I don't really have the space to talk about on this podcast. For instance, something I've never talked about on this podcast before, but I'm going to mention it now, is the fact that I'm gender fluid. I might be transgender. I'm still trying to figure all that stuff out. I've never actually mentioned it on this podcast before because it's just not really the kind of space for it, but I feel like I should bring it up at some point probably, and this seems like a good time, so
yeah. Lucas is on the show, so he gets to double scoop us on that.
Yes, he double scooped us.
I did have the exclusive when Colin's episode came out, so I'm glad to have the double scoop now.
So I also wanted to say, our wonderful co-host and frequent producer, Miles Schneiderman, just got married. As of the beginning of this month. So as you guys are listening to it, again...
Bob, were you surprised by that? Is this the first you've heard of this?
I just wanted to give it some flavor. Jeez.
I appreciate that.
But on behalf of everyone, we just want to say congratulations. I've seen the pictures. It looks like it was amazing. Colin, you were there. Any stories to share?
Yeah, you got scoops?
He gave an awesome speech that made everyone cry, including me, for his wedding vows. They were really great. And it was a really short ceremony, so everybody was happy about that. And then we just went to the reception, and he had an open bar and tacos. And so
holy shit!
He knows how to get things done.
Colin.
Yeah, no.
I need a reference point because you cried at our wedding as well. Do you cry at all the weddings, or is there something
I haven't been to enough weddings to know.
Oh, okay.
So
Colin is not on trial here.
Yes.
But yeah, so congratulations to him, and congratulations to his beautiful wife, and we wish them the best. And speaking personally, I hope he comes back soon, because I've been editing the show in his absence, and it's a pain in the butt.
Yes.
Yep. So time for the kid. Thanks. Over in Twitter, thank you to Florian, Rafael Medina, Scott Brown, Neil Butler, James Weaver, Cosplay Fiend, Marissa Bond, and Sabina Mosher. At Tumblr, thank you to Sid Rabbit Blog, Mr. Man 334, Fat Blunt 69.
Fat Blunt 69.
Choice. G Prime and
you too can make us say silly things if you give yourself a silly username and reblog our posts.
To be fair though, whenever I'm playing Overwatch, I kind of relish the those types of screen names.
Oh yeah.
I'm just wow, good one. Very original. Nice. G Prime and Sandwich Surplus, thank you for reblogging our episodes and such. And on Facebook, thank you to Color Circuit, Jeffrey Ketchum, and Robert Scott Ramsey for sharing our episodes.
We also have a new iTunes review that I'd like to share. This one comes to us from a new fan by the name of Adam Mayo, who also emailed us recently talking about the show and giving us a bunch of really good suggestions. His review is titled A Triumphant Ode to Geekdom, and he gives us 5 stars. This podcast is an excellent series of debates that will bring tears of nostalgia to your eyes upon being reminded of all those arguments you've had with your friends in the comic book store. Well, I'm here to say I definitely had those arguments in many places, the comic book store being but one. So, thanks, Adam.
Oh my god, guys, Lucas Brown just followed us.
What? The Lucas Brown?
I did.
Oh my god. Oh
that means we have to thank him on the air, right?
No, you gotta retweet. So get on that retweet.
Oh, you gotta retweet. Not good enough, Lucas.
I'm going.
I wanted to take this opportunity to say that if you haven't, for some reason, some unknowable reason, read the insanity that I wrote for the Patreon, you should go read it. And if you have any desire to see hell become real, you should. Then you should throw $1 at our Patreon and then go see just what Doom says whenever he has sex.
Is it Doom?
Yeah.
Colin,
Doom
don't
and
give away the
Elaine.
spoilers.
That scene,
I'm not there
though-
for the doom. I'm there to hear Elaine say "Get out."
Yes.
And I just retweeted that.
All right, Kit, go for
All
it.
right. Beep, 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 beep. Ah, Lucas Brown. Thank you for retweeting our.
The circle is complete.
If you donate at any level on Patreon, you get access to some ridiculousness, including being thanked on the show, just as Josh Sperling and Sarah Roth were during,
powerful
being
ninjas.
assigned some powerful Mars-hating martial artists this episode.
I apologize if you don't actually hate Mars. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Smash Fiction. We hope it made your ears happy. Next week, Aquaman versus Namor.
Smash Fiction is produced by Miles Schneiderman and production assistant Sharon Holden, with logo design by Colin Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin McLeod of the Clan McLeod at Incompetech.com for our theme song, Hitman.
You can find us on Twitter at SmashFic Podcast and search for the Smash Fiction Podcast on Facebook, Tumblr, and YouTube.
Subscribe on iTunes or your podcatcher of choice, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Smash Fiction is made possible thanks to our supporters on Patreon at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. Please consider donating as little as $1 each month. It helps us keep the show going, and we have great rewards and extra content for those who help us out.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.
Bob, my love, please be my Hugin or Munin, please.
Oh yeah,
Aw.
absolutely. Oh my god, no, did I not tell you that Neil and I have our own, because we don't have ravens here, that we have, that we invented a third one named Dipshit the Grackle? That's
my
that's
God.
Odin's, no, that's Odin's favorite one, and Huey and Munin have to do, all the good, the cool shit. But Dipshit is Odin's favorite, and he's the one that he sends. He's like, "What's for dinner?" And he sends Dipshit to go find out, and Dipshit's like, "Arr." And he's like, "Oh, Dipshit, you slay me." And then Heimdall, Hunin and Munin will come back, and then he'll be like, "Hey, where's Dipshit?" And they'll be like, "Ah, fine." And then they leave. They can't come back through the thing because they have to go get Dipshit. And then Heimdall turns around, and there's Dipshit, and he and Dipshit just exchange a look, and they're like, "Yeah, right."
All right.
So those guys.
We have our new podcast theme. This Tales of
Yes.
Dipshit the Grackle.
Dipshit the Grackle is an obsession for Neil and I. We just see a grackle and we're like, "Hey, look, it's Dipshit."
Oh man.